I'm Zaakirah, and I am the host of the See Life Different podcast. This podcast is perfect for you if you are a Black, Indigenous, woman of color, ready to step outside of your comfort zone. This podcast will inspire you, empower you, and educate you on how to see life differently, whether it's in your business or in your personal life. I am a cancer survivor, brand cultivating strategist, author, and world traveler. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the See Life Different podcast. I'm your host Zaakirah, and today we're diving into a powerful new book called The Anti-Ableist Manifesto by Tiffany Yu. I had the privilege of meeting Tiffany at an event in Los Angeles in April of this year, 2024, and I'm excited to be a part of the book launch team. I'm excited about sharing what anti-ableism is all about. And just for some context, I am also disabled. I also identify with the terminology non-apparent disability, being a childhood eye cancer survivor that also experienced a hearing loss, that also experiences PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. I'm excited about the fact that the book is called Anti-Ableist Manifesto, Smashing Stereotypes, Forging Change, and Building a Disability Inclusive World. And that's exactly what the book talks about. It's break those stereotypes and offers actionable steps for creating a more inclusive world. And she also will be drawing from a diverse range of other voices, other disability advocates, disability activists, disabled authors, and educators, showcasing the interconnectedness of disability and the power of lived experience. Did you know that 1 in 4 U.S. American adults have a disability? That's about 61 million Americans. And an estimated 10% of the U.S. population has a non-apparent or invisible disability, myself included. Now, globally, there are over 1 billion people who currently live with a disability. Now, although 15% of people worldwide identify as disabled, disability still remains ignored and misunderstood by non-disabled people. Now, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or sometimes abbreviated, if you tend to Google it, it would look like Dream with an M. So N as in Nancy, D as in dog, E as in elephant, A as in apple, M as in Mary. NDEAM. Now, in this episode, I'll be talking to Tiffany, but I will also be encouraging you to take the steps necessary toward combating ableism and supporting disability inclusion. So who is Tiffany? Her official bio is that Tiffany Yu, is the founder of DiversAbility, an online community. She is the creator of the viral Anti-Ableism TikTok series. She is a TEDx speaker, and her TED Talk, How to Help Employees with Disabilities Thrive, has reached over 1 million views and counting. She is also the co-founder of the Awesome Foundation, the Disability Chapter. She served on the planning committee of the LA 28 Olympic and Paralympic Games, and she was the co-chair of the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Impact Summit. She has this history of being an amazing content creator and advocate. And with her financial industry, she was previously working at Goldman Sachs, Bloomberg, and Revolt TV. Now she really has been living her legacy when it comes to making sure that we are in an inclusive world. The book itself, why should you read the book? One, the book is for you because it is a guide for navigating the world with more love, more care, more compassion. The 3 values I definitely hold dear in my life and on this podcast. And it's also because it's organized from the personal perspective when she shares her story to the professional perspective from when she was employed and the domestic and political perspective. So there's this phrase that you'll see in the book called me to we to us. And so the Anti-Ableist Manifesto offers you tools for you to become an active anti-ableist, which includes ways to support disabled people, identify and prevent microaggression both online and offline, removing the anti-ableist languages from our vocabulary, and how to increase accessibility both public and professional spaces, again, online and offline. And there's a handful of reflective questions for you to really create inclusive events and make sure that you are listening inclusively. I'm excited to really get into it. Now, the Anti-Ableist Manifesto is out as of October 8th. It is a super easy read. Haben Gurma, she's the author of The Deafblind Lawyer Who Conquered Harvard, she left a review and she even said that it's an easy read. And she mentioned the fact that it's essential for understanding disability inclusivity. It's already been awarded the edited pick on Amazon. It's going to be many more accolades coming. And I'm so excited for you to hear from Tiffany. So let's get into it. Hello, welcome to another episode of the See Life Different podcast. I am your host, Zaakirah, and today I'm wearing a black headscarf wrapped like a turban to the crown of my head, and I'm wearing a long sleeve white top with slightly red lipstick. And Tiffany, what are you wearing today?
Hi, everyone. You've got Tiffany Yu here. I'm a Taiwanese American woman with below the shoulder length black hair, and I'm wearing a blue top. And right next to me, I have a hard copy version of my book, The Anti-Ableist Manifesto, that has an orange gradient cover.
Great. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today because we're having a conversation during Disability Employment Awareness Month. This is exactly why you chose the October release to happen during Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I want you to start there, start with your career trajectory and then what really motivated you to go from your successful career trajectory over to really launching DiversAbility.
Yeah, such a good question. And happy National Disability Employment Awareness Month. The theme for this year is, I think it's better access to jobs for all, which I think we can all get on board with. But as you mentioned, I studied finance and accounting when I was in university. I just loved the way that financial statements flowed together. I know not everyone can share that sentiment, but I started my career in financial services, working at places like Goldman Sachs and Bloomberg, and in corporate finance at Revolt TV. And interestingly enough, it was my experience working at those companies that really inspired a lot of my disability advocacy. So while I was an intern at Goldman, I got introduced to their disability employee resource group or their disability affinity group. And this is a space for employees who have disabilities or employees who touch disability or want to show up better for the disability community to get to come together, share resources, find support, build community. And when I was there, here I was, a summer intern, getting to network with managing directors and partners at this company and really building up my mentors and my network within this company outside of my own direct investment banking group. And when I left, I reflected on how good that felt. It created a sense of belonging for me and a sense of self-identity within that company that then I went back for my senior year at university and I said, hey, I was part of this really incredible group. I was also part of the women's group, and they also had an Asian group. But I was like, I saw all of these groups that existed on Wall Street, and I noticed that we don't have a disability club here at Georgetown. I'm the type of person where if I don't see something exists, if I feel like I have the capacity and resources to make it happen, I will try to figure it out. So I started having a lot of conversations with other students that I knew had disabilities at Georgetown, and that kind of became the first iteration of DiversAbility. All of that said, then after I graduated from college, I went back to work on Wall Street and had a couple other roles then. But one of the interesting things was that disability followed me through all of those different career points. So when I shifted from Goldman to Bloomberg, I actually helped co-found and pitch the creation of Bloomberg's Disability Employee Resource Group. This was 2013, 2014. So now that group is 10 years old. Can you believe that? And so even now in 2024, I'm still having a lot of conversations with companies who are in maybe the first year or just about to launch their disability employee resource group. So yeah, like you said, it is intentional that this book is coming out during this month. I am so grateful and privileged to have had access to the employment opportunities that I have had. But I also know that is not usual for the disability community. Our unemployment numbers are twice that of our non-disabled peers. I never saw myself becoming a full-time disability advocate. And I do like to share this part. I got fired from a startup job in 2017. And I want to share that because we're not good at everything, right? So I know I name dropped a lot of big companies, but here I was in this sales role at the startup and I I wasn't good. So I got fired. And at that particular point in time, I said, during this transition period until I find my next startup or tech or corporate job, I'm going to work on this DiversAbility community that I'd been building up. And now it's been 7 years and I have a book coming out. Who would have thought?
I love that. And I definitely love that you chose your purpose. I think one of the questions I'm gonna ask at the end that I always ask my guests is what is your legacy? And I wanna just acknowledge you right now that you are already walking in your purpose as far as letting it choose you. And so now I wanna go back to when you were 9, right? We gotta go back to that story of the time of your accident. And from that time period, of becoming an advocate for disability? Was that pivotal moment, or maybe one or two or three pivotal moments that really influenced your path to having disability for 7 years now?
Yeah. So if your listeners are new to me, at the age of 9, I was involved in a car accident. My dad was driving. He unfortunately passed away. I acquired a handful of injuries, including permanently paralyzing one of my arms, known as a brachial plexus injury. I broke a couple bones in one of my legs that would leave me as a temporary wheelchair user for about 4 months during my rehabilitation period. And much later, I'd be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, which is a mental health disability. And I will say for the 10 plus years after that accident, I felt like I was living as a shell of myself. I'm the daughter of Asian immigrants. My dad is from Taiwan. My mom is a refugee from Vietnam War. And one of the things that I feel like, I don't know if it had been imposed on me or I had internalized it, but everything is viewed in the context of the household. You don't want to do anything that might bring shame to your entire family. And my understanding of the car accident was that because something in our family lineage was bad luck, it meant that this car accident happened. So don't share anything about that. Because someone in the immediate family passed away, it means that, so, again, somewhere in the family lineage, there was some bad luck or something that caused this to happen. I have respect and compassion that my parents grew up in a different generation, and I am trying to break some of those intergenerational harmful stereotypes and beliefs, because sometimes an accident is just an accident. There's no reason it happened. But in addition to that, disability was also viewed as very shameful. Something in the lineage was bad that made it so that now I had a disability. I essentially grew up believing that I should hide my disability. I shouldn't ask for help or support or assistance. I told everyone my dad was away on a trip for a really long time, not so that I wouldn't have to acknowledge that he had passed away. And a lot of people I grew up with didn't know that I was in a car accident. Many assumed that my injury was from birth, and no one asked me about it. So I also didn't have an opportunity to correct the story, nor at the time did I feel like I wanted to, right? Here I am, a kid going through something. And I want to delineate a difference between, I would describe the car accident as tragic. I would not describe my existence as a disabled person as tragic. And for a kid to go through something like that tragic and not have an outlet, I think I just grew up believing that my story didn't matter, that no one cared. And essentially, I was having a hard time trying to keep track of all of the lies. And I wish I could tell you that it was some turning point or some pivotal moment, but I do feel like all of these different experiences of, like, interning at Goldman and getting introduced to a bunch of other disabled employees at this company. Also being able to see that the CEO and president at the time both had disabilities that they weren't shy about. They weren't full-on disability advocates because I guess they were busy running a company. But I don't know. I Essentially, I look back and I think two themes come up, and one theme is around solidarity.
The Anti-Ableist Manifesto, Smashing Stereotypes, Forwarding Change, and Building a Disability Inclusive World by Tiffany Yu. It presents frameworks for conversation, breaks down the language of ableism, and proposes actionable steps that lead to real allyship. It includes contributions from disability advocates, activists, authors, entrepreneurs, and more, highlighting the importance of intersectionality. Tiffany Yu, the founder of DiversAbility, celebrates the power of stories and lived experiences to center the vast range of disabled identities that have far too often been othered or rendered invisible. Organized from the personal to professional to domestic to political, me, we, to us, the Anti-Ableist Manifesto offers tools to become an active anti-ableist, including ways to support disabled people, identifying and preventing microaggressions, removing ableist language from the vocabulary, increasing accessibility in public and professional spaces, as well as how to create truly inclusive events. It's an easy read, highlighting an essential for understanding disability inclusivity. It has been awarded editor's pick on Amazon. You can now order your copy on Amazon and wherever you get your books now.
As I mentioned in my intro, I'm a Taiwanese American woman. I actually didn't identify as Taiwanese or Asian until I was 18. I think I also want to highlight that in addition to there being shame around a disability identity, as an Asian person in America, I think I had also internalized a lot of, I don't know, I guess I would say this like white supremacy rhetoric that I should hide my race and try to anchor myself to not bringing attention to that. And Michelle Kim, who does a lot of work around racial equity, has said that for many of us who are Asian in America, we saw our pathway to success as assimilation. Our pathway to success was blending in with the wallpaper and not drawing attention to ourselves. And I know that was a long-winded way to talk about solidarity, but when I was a freshman, again, here I was 18 years old. I met another Taiwanese student and I made a joke to her that we should start a Taiwanese club. And she actually took that thing that I said as a joke. And as a freshman at university, I'm finding whatever points of commonality I have to make friends. And we became the co-founders of the Taiwanese American Club. And what's interesting is it took a while for me to see myself as a disability advocate. But what I knew how to do was I knew how to start a club. So from 18 years old until 21, I was really actively involved in this Taiwanese American club, building it up. It's still around. And fast forward to my senior year, I'm now coming back. I got introduced to this disability group at Goldman. And I said, I started the Taiwanese group at Georgetown. Could I also start a disability group here at Georgetown too? So really, it started with Tiffany as a community builder. And it said, I was able to create a sense of pride and empowerment and learn more about my culture as a Taiwanese American person. And I'm curious if there are other people here who would be interested in that around disability culture and disability history and disability empowerment and pride. Our first supporters of DiversAbility were all of my Taiwanese American club members. They helped design DiversAbility's logo. They showed up to our events. And I have so much gratitude for them because slowly but surely, what I saw ended up happening was because other people saw people coming to my disability events, people who then had non-apparent disabilities, which we now know about 70 to 80% of disabilities are, now felt a little bit more comfortable to show up. But we tried to make them fun too. We did like a painting event where we said, paint what disability means to you, and we partnered with a local coffee shop to hang them up. But all at the same time, emails, I remember we had this email address, DiversAbility@gmail, and my name wasn't associated with it. But we started getting emails to that DiversAbility@gmail account from people that I knew who had these non-apparent disabilities like chronic illnesses or this vision disorder, who were now like, oh, I saw the flyers out about this club. I'm interested in joining, right? So sometimes it's letting people decide to join on their journey. but then also pulling in support wherever you can.
You said the entire journey, realizing that like there's a community out there willing to support. And I interject and just share our story of how we met. We were already at an event that was basically community built, and we just so happened to see each other at the end of almost the end of a concert, all in Hamilton, your first million live in Los Angeles. It's my first time in Los Angeles, and I was like, "Wait a minute, are you Tiffany?" You're like, "Yeah, hi." And so I think that's what really is the core of Anti-Ableist Manifesto, just having that kindness, that love and compassion for knowing whether, because you never know who is disabled because there are, fortunately, a bigger percentage of non-apparent disabilities that are now coming into the light. And then we met and we connected and just realized that we had such a similar crossing of the path. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I was studying photography, but my disability seeing in one eye because I was 9 months old when my services removed. So just also the same thing of when I first started really building my photography career, it was always the people who were in my circle, the friends, the family, the associates, and I too became a founding president of a chapter of a civic club called Key Club. It was a Kiwanis version for high schoolers. It's just really being able to, I think, the syndrome is the success syndrome. You can work so hard to the point where you just want to push everything to the side and make everything else invisible. So yeah, community is super important, and community is really what really brought you to the stage of releasing the book as well. So I just want to commend you for that.
Yeah, and I think what's been interesting, the first iteration of DiversAbility as that student club was 2009. So in some ways, we're turning 15 this year, right? We no longer exist only within this club at Georgetown. We've expanded our community. And if the pandemic taught me a lot of things, what I feel grateful for is realizing that our overall well-being is this intersection of our mental health, our physical health, and our social health, right? So I know we're talking about community, and both you and I are part of some intersecting communities as well. But I feel like a lot of people may view community as this nice to have and not this must have. And what we're realizing, and even the research shows this, and there's a reason why people call what we're in now a loneliness epidemic, is because loneliness impacts everything. It puts you into an elevated threat state. It makes you even more socially isolated, and it impacts your self-esteem and your confidence. And one thing I do tell people is, even if DiversAbility is not the community you join, I do hope that you have access to social connection and healthy relationships and community no matter where you are, right? So yeah, I have a lot of gratitude for your first million live, for you finding me and connecting out there. And even for your listeners, like we hopped into a Zoom call and you said, I will be a part of your book launch team. And I remember telling you, I said, I'm not going to have a book launch team because I am just so overwhelmed. But after sitting on it and reflecting, I was like, if I do launch a book launch team, I know I will have at least one person on it, which is you. And sometimes that's enough, right? And I think about that with community too. Sometimes it just starts with one person. I think a lot of people go out and they look for the vanity metrics of like 1 million people or 100,000. But if you are impacting 30 or 5 or one person, or you have that. Actually, I think it was Brene Brown who said this. She said, even if you just have one person in your life who is supporting you and cheering you on, sometimes that's all you need. So I have a lot of gratitude for you for planting that seed. And yeah, we connected so briefly. It was very loud at the concert too. We were at a concert. And yeah, I'm grateful for all of the touch points afterward that brought us to this point.
Likewise. And so now I want to go over to, we're almost done with this part of the conversation. And so now I want to go over to just, now that we either both of us have been from the entrepreneur side organizations and the workforce. And so what are 3 actionable steps both individuals who are ableist in an organization can ableism and foster a more authentic representation of people with disabilities, both in the work and in media?
Yeah, such a good question. And my hope is that we can move from understanding that we all have ableist tendencies to all desiring to be anti-ableist. And so 3 things I would share. Number 1 is it is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. If you go onto the Department of Labor website, they actually have all of these different action items you can submit to have your city or your town proclaim October as Disability Employment Awareness Month. But yeah, let me give you 3 tips outside of that. So number 1 is I really love the phrase, do you have what you need to fully participate? This is mentioned a few times in the book, but what I love about this question is it helps us build what I aspire to have more of, which I call accessibility first cultures. So just asking people, no matter where you are, like if you're hosting an event or maybe you have a work meeting, including somewhere in there, hey, we're going to host this on Zoom. It will be recorded and have a meeting summary afterward. Outside of that, let us know if there's anything else you need to participate. And that also ties into if you do have a work meeting, just doing like a quick access check-in at the beginning. And the response to that can be, hey, my access needs are being met. I was just on a meeting the other day where we did do an access check-in and I said, hey, I might have my camera off because I'm eating lunch for parts of this because we're all in different time zones. So first question or first script is, do you have what you need to fully participate? The second thing I'll share is another script, which is, let me know if you need anything. And as disabled people, especially people who have more apparent disabilities, we are offered help more than we would like. Sometimes it becomes a little bit of a microaggression or a macroaggression, depending on how many times people are trying to help you. But what I like about this statement, let me know if you need anything, is it doesn't force anyone to engage with you. Essentially, you're saying, I'm here if you need support, but you're not forcing that person to say, hey, I'm going to help you. Or do you need help? Because maybe for that person, they've been asked if they need help all the time. At the same time, if someone declines your offer for help, do not interject yourself into that scenario. My hand is paralyzed. It looks different. The way I do things will very likely look different from how you do them, even down to the way I open packages looks different. I open them on the floor. And so just because we're doing them different doesn't mean that we're struggling. It just means that we've adapted to learn how to do those things in a different way. And then number 3, I did post about this on LinkedIn today, I guess tying back to National Disability Employment Awareness Month, is what are ways that you can support a disabled person's livelihood? So many ways to think about this. If you are a hiring manager or someone who's in a position to hire, can you hire a disabled social media person for that? Even for my book, or it could be, hey, I'm going to go support a disabled author by buying their book. Or, hey, I'm going to support this disabled person's podcast. Maybe you have ads running through or you get paid based on number of plays. Sometimes there are some of these bonus programs with some content platforms. Even for the book, we hired a disabled designer and a disabled editor to help with certain parts of the book. And we're hosting our first launch event at a disability-owned bookstore, right? So this is even for me as someone who has a super teeny tiny team. Everyone on our team is disabled, but for the book, that's different. So even for the book, I'm thinking, what are ways that I can support disability-owned businesses in all different parts of the supply chain? So I actually have a spreadsheet, and you can go online and find lists where I've put so in addition to hosting the event at the disability-owned bookstore, if we get corporate orders coming in or a request for a bulk order, we're placing those through those disability-owned bookstores too. And I don't know, I'm just getting a lot of joy because they love getting that call from us being like, okay, we have an order for 200 books. And if anyone wants to order 200 books, you're welcome to. But yeah, I think those to me, and I think, again, no matter who you are, even if you are someone who maybe you're not an author, so you're not going out to buy 200 books or host an event at the disability-owned bookstore, but if you love books, you can go buy your book from that disability-owned bookstore. Or let's say you love candles. You can search disability-owned candles, and you might come up with some options there. All of those small steps, the 2 scripts, and then this last one about figuring out ways that you can, I guess I'll call it like the disability economy, like support the disability economy by figuring out ways that you can help support and amplify advocates who are trying to get their voices out, even a small stipend. And if you literally don't have anything, you could refer them over make sure that you keep them in mind for referrals and different things like that. So those are my 3 tips. And then I'll add a 4th bonus one because I know a lot of people are active on social media, but I encourage people to ask themselves, and I know this is like a simplified way of doing it, but if you are putting out content, just asking yourself, hey, if someone is not able to see, are they still able to fully participate? I guess back to step number 1. If they're not able to hear, are they still able to engage with your content? And using those as anchor points to how you think about accessibility. So making sure that if you're creating text graphics, like the contrast is high enough. What's interesting is even the book cover is this gradient that I was nervous about the color contrast, but one way is you make the font big enough, but you also describe it as well. So yeah, 2 scripts and then 2 actionable things that you can do, either if you're in a position to hire or you just buy things in general as a consumer, and then also if you're creating content. And that
You made it
question,
fun.
Zaakirah, that
Yeah,
question is hard because I wrote a
yeah,
250-page book about all
right.
the ways that we can show better for the
And the
disability
podcast,
community.
this is just excerpt, right? But this is what would really just allow people to dive into, whether listen to it, read it, cliff notes if you need it, but whatever actions you do take, it is easy to do. It can be fun to do, and it's possible to make it an inclusive world. Yeah, thank you for sharing those tips, and especially from my end, I think one is for me. I think aside from seeing in one eye, I can see, but also lately I wear hearing as a result of the radiation treatment from the cancer, but lately I've been experimenting what it feels like to not wear them. And important for the disability inclusive aspect of it is the hearing impaired, understanding the difference between hard of hearing and hearing impaired, and having captions. I think captions, thank goodness that generative AI is enabling automatic captions everywhere. It still needs to be improved because those who were deaf or hard of hearing were not always trained with speech therapy, so it doesn't pick up on the words clearly. But that's what I've observed lately from the hard of hearing and deaf community. But yeah, there's so many ways to make it easy, make it fun. And so for people who, okay, I'm gonna take the time, spend the weekend, read the book, how do they do that?
So the best place to go is tiffanyyu.com/book. And while you're there, you will see I'm doing a handful of events throughout the month of October. Where are you based in DC now?
No, I am going to be traveling soon. I am in the East Coast. I have people in DC, people in Atlanta, people in Florida.
Okay. We have a couple of stops. Right now we have LA, Philadelphia, and DC confirmed. I was just asking about DC because we are coming to DC. But you'll see all the links to buy the book at your favorite retailer there. Actually, you're inspiring me to maybe make that list of disability-owned bookstores public. So I think I'll add that onto the page too if you want to specifically buy your book from a disability-owned bookstore. And then depending on when this comes out, there are a couple of pre-order bonuses available as well. There's an exclusive companion workbook, but that's the best place. And then you'll also find all of my social media links there as well if you want to follow me and continue the conversation.
Great. And so now I want to end or wrap up the conversation with two of my favorite questions. You probably did touch on them, but in a way, it'll be reiteration for those who missed it in the first time. But go ahead and tell a little bit more about where you want to travel. You are about to embark on a traveling journey just to get the book out there, but where are you looking forward to traveling to the most?
I currently don't have any trips scheduled there, but I would love to go to Australia. While I was living in San Francisco, I got to meet just a lot of Australians. They were saying that the weather's similar. And then I think the seasons are flipped as well. So no plans to travel there. But I will say I've been to 51 countries. And my 2 favorite countries that I have visited so far are Iceland and Jordan, and keeping Jordan in my heart. There's a lot going on, but the country was just so beautiful, both of them in different ways.
Nice. And then you also did briefly touch on it, but in one sentence, what would you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, I want my legacy to be that I left the world a little bit better for disabled people.
Say it again for the people in the back.
That's the one sentence version. Yeah, I want my legacy to be that I left the world a little bit better for disabled people. Can I put a little asterisk on that?
Yeah.
So I dedicated the book to 9-year-old Tiffany and my dad, who passed away in the accident. And I've been thinking about my dad's legacy, and he just lived so unapologetically and I think he imparted, and he loved the outdoors. And I think he imparted both of those things onto me. And yeah, I guess my asterisk legacy is that I'm able to carry his memory forward too.
Absolutely. You're definitely carrying his legacy, and your legacy is definitely being lived out loud. And I'm honored to have and be a part of it. So thank you for being a guest on the See Life Different podcast.
Thanks for having me.